Moving onwards to our next session, that is managing corporate actions impact on an employee stock option plan. Introducing our thought leader, Mr. Jalad Sinha, Head of Business Development, ESOP Direct, a Capita company. Mr. Sinha is a chartered accountant and commerce graduate from University of Allahabad, leads business development for consulting assignments at ESOP Direct. With over 10 years of experience, he specializes in equity based compensation schemes and previously led sales at TCS. A huge round of applause for Mr. Jalad Sinha.
Hello, am I audible? Okay, thank you. Yeah, so a session after lunch is always difficult, and that could be the reason why there was no question on the previous session on ESG. I hope this session would be more interactive. This session is a sort of a technical session, so there would be numbers, but I don't fear it because we all love numbers here. So I'll step forward. Now, before I go to the topic, which is how a corporate action impacts a stock option plan, and as a finance leader in the company, how do we look at it? Let me just spend some time on Capita. So our why is basically centered around ownership. We believe that innovation is something which is going to fuel growth, and the innovation and human capital are interrelated. And because of this, it has created places where employees, founders, investors, they become owner through their equity participation. Now, what are we doing? We want to partner with those enterprises who believe in the concept of ownership and serve them with the services that we provide. So what are we doing here? So in terms of employee stock options or equity compensation domain, we are right from the beginning of advising the company on scheme framework, on the benchmarks, on the instrument selection, on the feasibility study. We help companies in finalizing their scheme framework, where we work very closely with management, investors, founders, and promoters also. We also help companies in legal documentation and employee communication and rollout. So this is basically the advisory work that we do. Apart from advisory, we also administer this program. So for this, we have a technology. There's a platform which offers portal access to employees, where they can receive their letters online, they can track their vesting. This is an integrated platform, so they can also make payments against their exercise price. This also calculates the tax which the employee has to pay at the time of exercise. And for the company, there is a lot of reporting which comes to the platform, and along with that, there's also a service delivery team which helps in day-to-day administration, feeding the data, reconciling the data, taking employee queries. In this, we also act as corporate trustees for some of the companies who have institutionalized their program through the trust route. Along with the administration, we do a lot of work on the financial compliance side, so basically option valuation. And this is one area which I'm going to touch during the session on the corporate action impact. This is one area where we are working consistently for the last 2 years to provide a marketplace for unlisted companies' liquidity, where both on the syndication of investors or creating a platform where blocks can be traded. So we intend to facilitate that process. Now let us just go through the companies that we work with. So on the listed company side, we are working with more than 200 companies. This includes 117 companies which are on the platform. These are some of the names. Quickly going to, these are the names which are, I was very happy to see that these are the companies which are present in this conference, and these are the logos that we have, worked with. So my appreciation for selecting ESOP Direct Capita for the services that we are providing. Okay. Now we have a team of 4 people, including me, Pallavi, Sharad, and Yash, who are there. We have a booth setup. So please visit if you find time. We are also, sharing equity compensation survey. So those who want to, have that survey, you can share your connects. We will get back to you. Now we all know about equity stock option, but this is just a slide where, just to refresh the concept. So stock option is a right which is given to the employee to buy shares of the company at a future date. The price is predetermined. So when the options vest, the rights crystallize, and they have to pay to the company exercise price. There is a taxation obligation which needs to be discharged, and post that the company issues shares to the employee. Now post that it is for the employee when they want to sell or monetize. So these are basically the journey of a stock option in 5 stages that you can see on this slide. Okay, so let's come to the topic of the session. Now this is where I want to set some baseline in terms of the learning objective as to what we target from this session, and at the end of it we should have information about these points. So what are we saying? Corporate transactions affects option value. This is a question that we will answer. We'll also see when an option adjustment to options are necessary. What are the legal provisions in this regard from SEBI and the Companies Act? And what is the principle that is used or should be used, or which is a global best practice in the making an adjustment to the stock options when there is a corporate transaction? And what are the accounting implications? So we'll see these 5 points through an example. And since there are many types of corporate action, mergers, spin-off, carve-out, demerger. But in this example, I have considered a demerger situation. So the example is there's an entity A, and there's a vertical split in the balance sheet. The entity A has a stock option program where there are certain options which are outstanding. The residual entity takes 75%, whereas the resultant entity, which is B, takes 25%. The share capital also gets split, and the shareholders of A are issued shares in the resulting entity B in the same proportion. This is what typically happens in a demerger. There is no subsidiary holding subsidiary relationship left or there between A1 and B, which is the residual entity and the resulting entity. Now there is an employee X. We will keep on referring to this X during this example. Now this employee has received options in entity A, and he is being transferred to a resulting entity which is B. Now the question is, what will happen to his option? First of all, whether there is a requirement to do any adjustment. So the answer is yes, because the share prices will break. So if this person is moving to entity B, the entity, he will either have options of both entity A1, which is resultant, or get some compensation in entity B. So what happens to the shareholder here? Suppose I am a shareholder in entity A, I will receive a share in entity A1, I am already a shareholder, but in entity B, I will receive one more share. That is how my value will be matched. So it's a 1:1. However, in case of the option holder, if I apply the same principle, what will happen is this employee would be issued option in the same ratio. So he will receive one option in the resulting entity, and the strike price is going to be split between 75 and 25. So suppose the exercise price in this case was 1,000 rupees. So he continues with his original option, but the strike price will now be 750, and he receives one option in the resulting entity where the strike price becomes 250. Now this seems to be very logical, and many companies, they do it in the same way. But there is a fallacy in this sort of a working if we do an adjustment basis the share exchange ratio. So what is the fallacy? The fallacy is stock options and shares, these are two different things. Now shares, the shareholder can tomorrow sell the shares any moment. I mean, there's no waiting period. But for the option holder, he has to wait for those options to crystallize. So those options needs to vest. So there's a time for it. And then only he can make a sale, right? So we cannot apply the same share exchange ratio to a stock option because their valuation methods are different. The stock option is a derivative. It derives the value from the underlying share, whereas share is a share. I mean, it's an asset on day one, which you can, do anything, you can trade. So in the diagram, if we just put some numbers there, so combined entity value was, let's say on a share, it was 4,000 rupees. If this is a split 75-25, so entity A1, which is the residual, will be 3,000, and the entity B would be 1,000. So in this case, what has happened is one option in the entity A continued as entity A1 with an adjustment to 750, and then entity B, a new option was issued at 250 rupees. Now let us take this further. What will happen, post, this demerger is put in place? The growths will also be different for different entities. I mean, it will not be, suppose the CAGR was for the combined entity was 20%, it will not be 20% for the entities post demerger. Assuming that entity B will grow at a very fast pace. So if you see, let's say at the end of the 3 years, entity B price will be somewhere around 3,300, whereas entity A1, which is residual, will be somewhere around 5,800, totaling up to 9,200. Whereas if this demerger would have not have taken, then and grown at the same 20%, it would be somewhere close to 6,900, as we can see in the screen. So this is where we need to learn this concept that there's a time value in the options which needs to be considered when we are doing a stock option adjustment. Companies do make a mistake when they apply the share exchange ratio to the option adjustment also. So here what can happen is, let's see in the next slide, from a fair value perspective. So suppose if we do the fair valuation of these options pre-demerger, the value was coming to 3248. So I have used Black-Scholes formula. I have changed some inputs number pre and post. So 3248 was the value of the options pre-demerger. And value of the option post-demerger taking the growth, taking the volatility, which is going to be different for the resulting entity. The value was coming to 2636 in resultant entity, and in the 1014 in the resultant entity, and the residual entity it was 2636. So if you see in totality, actually the fair value is more as compared to what was the value pre-demerger. The concept is the value pre-demerger should be equated with value, what is the value of the option post-demerger. That is the principle. What SEBI says? SEBI says that in case of any corporate action, the compensation committee should ensure that the value of options pre-corporate action and post-corporate action should be equated. And this can be done either by changing the quantum of option or changing the strike price or both. So the company needs to do this valuation at the time of this demerger example, where they should have valued, instead of doing 1:1 and splitting the exercise price, they should have valued it, what is the value pre-demerger and what is the value post-demerger. Okay. Now suppose if we apply this in the context of the employee who is moving to resultant entity, there's one more aspect of it, which is SEBI also says that all unvested options should be cancelled at the time of separation. So those companies who follow a basket approach, so in case of a demerger, when an employee is moving, they allow employee to carry their unvested options in their, the main entity, which is the demerged entity, and also give them options in the resulting entity. This is not correct, as if you see this from the factual position of regulation, but many companies still do it, are doing it. So we need to have this approach. So if we do this adjustment for this X who is moving to resultant entity, the adjustment would be, I would compensate what he's losing there is 3248. This is the value he's losing. The value he's going to get in one option in the resulting entity is 1014. So I will issue 3.20 option against one option of the demerged entity. So this 3.2 options against one option will compensate him for the value loss. So this is something which is the central point, for this presentation. I'll just quickly, wrap it here. The questions that we have asked. So corporate actions affect the option value. Yes, corporate action does affect the option value, and it requires adjustment to neutralize the impact of corporate action and to make good any loss which the employee loss arising to the employee there. So it is we should be careful in applying just the share exchange ratio or the swap ratio in such transaction. The principle will also be applicable in case of an amalgamation or a merger. Similarly, when an options adjustment to options is necessary, it is necessary when the impact is material, and at the same time, SEBI also says that because this will be a modification of the terms, you are breaking the option into, or you are giving a new option, that modification should not be detrimental to the interests of the employee. So that's also something which should be taken into consideration. From a SEBI standpoint, its regulations are very clear. Companies Act does not have a direct mention. So Companies Act, typically unlisted companies, they follow this as a best practice. But this is the global best practice I'm sharing with you. Value for value principle, this is the central theme or concept in any corporate action adjustment that will come to us for an adjustment reporting, because we'll have to do this pre and post and find out if there is any deviation in the value, and this should be corrected. What is the accounting implication? So basically, in case of an accounting part of it, if this modification results into an incremental cost, then, incremental value is given, then in this case, the company has to account for that incremental cost, and that cost will enter the book in addition to the cost that was calculated at the time of grant. So company will charge that incremental cost in the books of account. So this is basically enunciated in the modification paras of Ind AS 102, which the company should be using. So if I come back to that equation, so we were saying that if this would have been properly done, one option, 3.2 options in resulting entity should be given against one option which this employee X held in the demerged entity, which was A, when he moved to the resulting entity. Now in the hindsight, company did not have the information and they did it 1:1. Suppose they followed this basis, then if you see the company, the auditors will ask, or company realize later that they should have done this fair valuation, but since they cannot do anything, it is already been considered. So the incremental cost you can calculate here. So this will be total of 2636 plus 1014, and against that 3248. So that difference is actually the incremental cost which the company will have to book and charge as an expense. So corporate action adjustment and this treatment in the stock option program, not much has been written about it. Still we come across many companies who don't do it properly. So it's where the suggestion is that if you come across, and many of you would have done it in the past also, take this principle. This is the principle which is also followed globally. Another interesting area is this is not questioned by the proxies. So we can see that there is a disproportionate gain to the employee which is being made in this particular case, because he is getting more in terms of the fair value. And if you combine this together with a large program, many employees covered there, this could be significant. So we have also not come across queries or concerns in any of the proxies note when these resolutions are placed for approval. So the right time to start preparing for it is data collection, what kind of a scheme this is, what sort of a transaction this is going to be. is when you are writing your scheme of arrangement, when you are talking to your lawyers, when you are preparing your swap ratio, you are doing those due diligences and getting the books ready. So this is when you should also keep time for the stock option adjustment and do this working, so that you will actually know what is the cost, if there is any incremental cost which is going to enter the books of account. So this is what I have to say. I mean, the time did not permit me to discuss other corporate action like mergers, but this is the principle which is applicable across. So do visit our booth. We are here, and we'll be happy to speak to you. Any information that you want for the services that we provide, and also in that survey report I was referring to, please do visit us, and we'll be happy to help you out. Okay, so with this I come to a close. There's no bell, so yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you. Any questions? Since I have some time, happy to take up. Yeah. Yes. So from the system standpoint, we are developing that capability, but basic accounting amortization reports we can pull it out from the system. So we are not, our system is still not capable to do the Black-Scholes valuation, but once, we can feed the Black-Scholes value, and
I'm not asking for valuation, I'm talking for the accounting numbers, which we account in the books.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The accounting number is derived from the Black-Scholes value only, because that is your grant date, accounting cost. So we can put that value in the system, and the system will give us the amortization report. So what exactly will go into the books of account for that particular period, we will get it from the system. And what is that unamortized amount, that also will get reflected. So Black-Scholes valuation is outside, but accounting, accounting amortization reports can be, downloaded from the system.
So it helps all type the ESOP scheme like graded based system or
Yes.
bullet vesting, whatever.
Yes, so that's where we are developing on the SARS side, on the accounting. We can manage SARS on our system, but on the accounting, we are still, some of these complex treatments where corporate action happens, where SAR accounting is. Those are the things which are in the pipeline. But the basic accounting of our stock options, the amortization of it, we can get it from the system. So what we are doing, there are so many clients where we are helping them on the accounting and disclosures. So we do it manually, which is on an Excel, and provide them as a report under our certificate. We are also a category 1 merchant banker. So that comes as a service where, going forward, our intention is to ensure that accounting also comes from the platform. Okay, thank you so much. Any questions? I am around, so please do. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Sinha, for sharing your thoughts. To do the honors, I request Mr. Debasish Roy, CFO of Middle East at Majorel, to please join us on the dais. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Jalaj Sinha and Mr. Debasish Roy?